And I'm starting to think that my grandma's in trouble.
Who's ready to celebrate?
I'm gonna make sure you don't go down.
To our future.
General Hospital.
Port Charles had seen its share of storms, but the kind that was quietly building now wasn't the loud, explosive kind. It was softer, heavier, the kind that settled into people's hearts before anyone even realized the sky had changed. And at the center of it all stood Sonny. He wasn't in his office, barking orders or negotiating deals. He was alone, staring out at the harbor, hands resting on the railing as if the cold metal could steady the thoughts racing through him. For a man who carried the weight of a city on his shoulders, tonight that weight felt different, personal, unavoidable. Because for once, this wasn't about power or territory. It was about truth. And Sonny knew the truth had a way of changing everything the moment it was spoken aloud. Behind him, footsteps approached, steady, familiar, unmistakable. Sonny didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Thought I'd find you here," Jason said quietly. Sonny let out a slow breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "You always do." Jason stepped beside him, both men looking out at the dark water. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It never was. Years of loyalty had made words optional. But tonight, words were exactly what Sonny feared. "I've been thinking," Sonny finally said. Jason glanced sideways. "That usually means trouble." A faint smirk tugged at Sonny's mouth. "Yeah, for me." The honesty in his tone shifted the air instantly. Jason straightened slightly, sensing the gravity. "You ever feel like you've been walking in one direction so long you forget why you started?" Jason considered that. "I remember why I started." Sonny nodded. "Protecting people." "Yeah." "And you still believe in that?" Jason's answer came without hesitation. "Always." Sonny looked down at his hands. What if protecting them means letting them go? That got Jason's full attention. "Sonny." "I'm tired," Sonny admitted softly. Not weak, not defeated, just tired of the cost. Jason's voice lowered. "You thinking about stepping back?" Sonny didn't answer right away, the harbor lights reflected in his eyes, flickering like memories. "I'm thinking about telling the truth," he said. Jason frowned slightly. "To who?" Sonny met his gaze. "Everyone who matters." The weight of that hung between them, because Sonny's truth was never small. It rippled through families, friendships, entire lives. Jason exhaled slowly. "That's not something you can take back." "I know." "You ready for what it does?" Sonny's expression softened, not the hardened leader, but the father, the man who loved too deeply for his own peace. "I don't think I get to be ready. I just think it's time." Jason studied him for a long moment, then he nodded once. "If that's what you need to do, I've got your back." Sonny's eyes warmed with gratitude. "I know you do." Another pause settled in, but this one was different, final, unspoken understanding passing between them. Jason looked back at the water. "There's something I need to tell you too." Sonny raised a brow. "That doesn't sound good." "It's not bad," Jason said. "Just a change." Sonny turned fully now. "What kind of change?" Jason's voice stayed calm, but there was a quiet certainty beneath it. "I'm leaving Port Charles." The words landed like a stone dropping through still water. Sonny blinked. "You're what?" "I've been thinking about it for a while," Jason said. "You stepping back made me realize maybe it's time I do too." Sonny shook his head slightly, trying to process. "Jason, you don't just walk away. This place, it's in you." "It was," Jason corrected gently, "but things change." "Since when?" "Since I started wondering who I am without all this." Sonny searched his face. "And you think you'll find that somewhere else?" Jason gave a faint, almost amused shrug. Worth finding out. For a moment, Sonny looked genuinely lost. Jason had always been the constant, the steady presence when everything else shifted. "You're serious," Sonny murmured. "Yeah." Sonny swallowed. "When?" "Soon." The harbor suddenly felt colder. "You could have told me earlier," Sonny said quietly. "I wanted to be sure." Sonny's jaw tightened, not anger, but emotion pressing through. "You're my brother." Jason's voice softened. "That doesn't change." "It feels like it does." Jason stepped closer. "It doesn't. Distance isn't the same as leaving someone." Sonny looked at him, eyes shining with things he rarely let show. "This place won't be the same without you." Jason gave a small smile. "Maybe that's the point." Sonny huffed a breath that almost became a laugh. "You always did know how to shake things up without trying. Guess I learned from you." They stood there a longer moment, two men who had shaped each other's lives more than either would ever say aloud. And for once, neither had a solution. Because sometimes the biggest changes weren't problems to fix, they were truths to accept. Across town, the mood was very different, lighter, brighter, buzzing with nervous excitement. Dante checked his reflection for the third time. "You're going to wear a hole in the mirror," came a teasing voice from behind him. He turned to see Sam leaning against the doorway, arms crossed and grin wide. "It's not a big deal," Dante said quickly. Sam arched a brow. "You're going on a date? It's just dinner. You changed shirts twice. That was strategic."
She laughed. "You're adorable when you're in denial." Dante rolled his eyes. "I'm not in denial." "Uh-huh. So what's her name again?" He hesitated a beat too long. Sam gasped. "You forgot her name?" "I did not forget." "Then say it." "Okay, I'm blanking." Sam burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Dante." "It's nerves," he defended. "Totally normal." "Right, because nothing impresses a woman like, 'Hey, you.'" He groaned. "You're not helping." She stepped closer, straightening his collar. "Relax. You're charming. You're funny. And you're a good guy." "Debatable." "No, factual," she said. "Any woman would be lucky." Dante's expression softened. "Thanks." She smiled warmly. "Now go before you start overthinking again." He grabbed his keys, then paused. "You really think this is a good idea?" Sam tilted her head. "Trying to be happy? Yeah, radical concept." He laughed. Okay, I'm going. Text me if you panic." "I will not panic." "You will absolutely panic." He shook his head, smiling as he headed out. But neither of them noticed the shadow lingering near the stairwell outside. Rocco. He'd come looking for his dad. Instead, he'd overheard just enough to misunderstand everything. Date, lucky, trying to be happy. The words tangled in his chest, twisting into something heavy and confusing. Because lately, Rocco felt like happiness was something everyone else got first, and he wasn't sure where he fit anymore. Later that night, Dante's date was going surprisingly well. They laughed easily, conversation flowing, the kind of connection that felt natural instead of forced. "So," she teased, "do you always look this nervous at dinner?" Dante chuckled. "Only when I care about making a good impression." Her smile softened. "You're doing fine." "Good, because I almost forgot your name earlier." She blinked. "You what?" He froze. That was a joke." She burst out laughing. "Please tell me that was a joke." "It was mostly a joke." "Dante." "Okay, a little panic happened." She shook her head, amused. "You're honest. I like that. Honesty's easier, less to keep track of." Their eyes met, warmth growing between them, and for the first time in a long while, Dante felt something open inside his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the simple relief of connection. But across town, Rocco sat alone in his room, staring at his phone, an open message thread. Unsure. Hurt. He typed something, deleted it, typed again. Finally, he hit send. The message went to the one person he thought might understand, Jason. Because Jason had always been steady, safe, someone who listened without judgment. But tonight, Jason was packing. A duffel bag lay open on the bed, simple, minimal, like him. His phone buzzed. He picked it up, seeing Rocco's name. His expression softened immediately. He read the message slowly, and the decision he'd been steady about all evening suddenly felt complicated. Because leaving was one thing, leaving when someone needed you was another. Jason sat down, phone in hand, staring at the words of a kid who felt lost in a world changing too fast. Outside, Port Charles kept moving, cars passing, lights glowing, lives shifting. Sonny preparing to speak truths that would reshape relationships. Dante discovering the fragile excitement of new romance. Rocco wrestling with fears he didn't yet know how to name. And Jason standing at the edge of departure, realizing that sometimes the hardest exits weren't about where you were going, but who you might be leaving behind. Because in Port Charles, change never came quietly. It arrived through confessions, through choices, through secrets finally seen. And by morning, nothing would feel quite the same again. If you're loving the twists, the romance, and the emotional turns unfolding in Port Charles, make sure you stay tuned, because the next chapter is about to change everything these characters thought they knew about loyalty, love, and where they truly belong.
Jason didn't move for a long moment after reading Rocco's message. The room was quiet except for the faint rustle of clothes in his half-packed bag. Everything about his plan had felt clear before this, clean, decisive, necessary. But the words on his screen weren't clean at all. They were messy, confused, young. "Are you leaving too?" That was all Rocco had written. Just 5 words. But behind them, Jason could hear everything the boy hadn't said. The worry, the fear, the sense that the ground under his life kept shifting without warning. Jason exhaled slowly and typed back, "I'm still here." He stared at the message a second before sending it, because technically it was true, but he also knew it wasn't the whole truth anymore. Across town, Sonny stood in his living room, the weight of his decision pressing heavier with each passing minute. Family photos lined the walls, moments frozen in time, smiles untouched by the complications that followed. He picked up one frame, thumb brushing the edge. "Funny," he murmured to himself, "how everything looks simpler in pictures." A voice behind him answered gently, "That's because pictures don't talk back." He turned to see Dante stepping in, jacket slung over his shoulder, date clearly over. Sonny studied him. "How'd it go?" Dante hesitated, then smiled slightly. "Better than expected." "That's rare," Sonny said. "Yeah," admitted Dante. "It felt easy." Sonny nodded, genuinely pleased. "You deserve easy." Dante leaned against the table, watching him. "You okay?" Sonny gave a non-committal shrug. "Thinking. Dangerous pastime. Runs in the family." They shared a faint grin, but Dante's expression soon shifted, more serious. "Jason told me," he said quietly. Sonny's jaw tightened. "Yeah. You're really considering stepping back?" Sonny didn't dodge this time. "Yes." Dante absorbed that. "That's big. Everything feels big lately." "And Jason leaving?" That one hit deeper. Sonny looked away briefly. "Didn't see that coming." "No one did." "He says it's time." Dante folded his arms. "Maybe he's right." Sonny glanced at him, surprised. "You think I should just let him go?" "I think," Dante said carefully, "you, of all people, understand needing a different life than the one everyone expects." That landed hard. Sonny let out a slow breath. "Doesn't make it easier." "No," Dante said softly, "it never does." A silence followed, father and son standing in shared uncertainty neither had language for. Finally, Sonny said, "There's something else." Dante's brow lifted. "There always is. I'm planning to tell everyone the truth. About everything that's been weighing on me." Dante straightened slightly. "You sure?" "No," Sonny said honestly, "but I'm sure hiding it isn't working anymore." Dante studied him, then nodded once. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it." Sonny's eyes warmed. "We?" Dante smirked. "Yeah, you're stuck with me." Sonny huffed a small laugh. "Good." But neither of them noticed the open doorway behind them, or the quiet figure who had paused there. Rocco. He hadn't meant to listen. He'd just come down for water.
But hearing Jason leaving and truth and everything changing tangled inside him like knots pulling tighter, he stepped back silently before they saw him. Upstairs again, his chest felt too full. He grabbed his hoodie and slipped out the door into the cool night air. Sometimes walking helped him think. Tonight it just made him feel smaller. Back in Jason's room, the phone buzzed again. "Can I see you?" Jason read it instantly. He didn't even think before replying. "Of course. Where are you?"
3 dots appeared, disappeared, returned. Pier. Jason was already grabbing his jacket. The pier was mostly empty this late, just the quiet slap of water against wood and distant harbor lights shimmering. Rocco sat at the edge, knees pulled up, staring down. Jason approached slowly, giving space. "Hey." Rocco glanced back, relief flashing across his face before he tried to hide it. "Hey." Jason sat beside him. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, Rocco said, "You're leaving." It wasn't a question. Jason nodded once. "I was planning to." Rocco swallowed. "Why does everyone leave?" The words were small, but they hit with enormous force. Jason turned slightly toward him. "That's not what's happening." "Feels like it," Rocco muttered. "Things just change, and nobody asks me." Jason considered his answer carefully. Change can feel like loss, even when it isn't. Rocco kicked lightly at the wood. "You're the one person who doesn't change." Jason gave a faint smile. "I change too." "Not in the bad way." Jason's chest tightened at that. Rocco glanced up. "If you go, it's like one more thing gone." The honesty was raw, unfiltered. Jason rested his forearms on his knees, looking out at the water. "I was leaving because I thought it was time to figure out who I am outside everything here." Rocco frowned. "You don't know who you are?" "Still working on it," Jason said. Rocco considered that. "I thought adults knew stuff." Jason chuckled softly. "We pretend well." A tiny smile tugged at Rocco's mouth. Then it faded. "Are you still going?" Jason didn't answer immediately, because the truth had shifted the moment he saw that message. "Plans can change," he said finally. Rocco's shoulders eased just a little. "Because of me?" "Because people matter. You matter." Rocco stared at the water, blinking quickly. "Good." They sat quietly, the night wrapping around them in calm. After a minute, Rocco said, "Dad's dating." Jason nodded. "Yeah." "It's weird." "Change again." Rocco sighed. "Everyone's moving forward, and I'm just stuck." Jason shook his head slightly. "You're not stuck. You're growing. That part just feels confusing." Rocco looked skeptical. "You sure?" "Very." Another pause. Then Rocco nudged his shoulder lightly. "You better not disappear." Jason nudged back. "I won't." And for the first time that night, Rocco smiled fully. Back at the house, Sonny stood alone again, phone in hand. He'd been staring at Jason's contact for 10 minutes. Finally, he called. At the pier, Jason's phone vibrated. He checked it. "Sonny." He answered. "Hey." Sonny's voice came through steady, but soft. "You with Rocco?" Jason glanced at the boy beside him. "Yeah." "Good." He needed someone tonight. Jason looked out over the dark water. We both did. A pause. Then Sonny said quietly, "I'm not ready to lose you too." Jason's expression gentled. "You're not losing me." "Feels like I am." Jason watched the Rocco tree circles on the wood with his finger. "Maybe I don't go as far as I thought." Sonny exhaled slowly. "That'd be okay." "Yeah, it would." Behind him, Rocco leaned back on his hands, listening to the harbor sounds, unaware that his fear had just shifted the course of someone else's life. And across Port Charles, lives kept moving, truths nearing the surface, romances beginning to bloom, bonds quietly choosing not to break. Because sometimes, chaos didn't tear people apart. Sometimes, it reminded them exactly why they stayed.
The only one who can give him what he needs right now.
The alternative to making this agreement was unacceptable. I had to put it to bed.
Why won't you let this go?
Just because you can do it. Maybe we should show him that by doing the opposite.
I just need to know how far you would go to protect her.
Now it's time to do it my way.